We were very poor. We lived in what they referred to as railroad or shotgun apartments, where you stood in the front door and you could see one end of the apartments to the other. It was cold water, no steam heat. We had an oil stove, and that was in the kitchen. There were other living things with us, like roaches and rats and bugs. I remember that we lived not far from the Hudson River, and my father walked to work to unload ships. I remember that very distinctly. We lived marginally, and we moved to Harlem in the 30s, in East Harlem. That's what it was called, El Barrio, Spanish Harlem. I was the oldest. My parents had 4 children. The 3 of us slept in one bed in one room. When I got to be about 16, one of my friends was shot. We were just having a friendly conversation, and a young man came and he had a pistol, and he just shot into the crowd. Wasn't aiming at anybody. My mom and his mom used to go to the park together, and so we were babies in the carriage. And so he bled to death on the sidewalk. Not uncommon. We used to say that ambulances drove slowly when they came to our community. And I thought, life is not very significant in my community. Nobody cared. I floundered about. I drank a lot, and I didn't have a job. And as I got to be 18 or 19 years old, I began to realize that I was on my way to becoming a bum. I was also concerned about my dad. I didn't know what was going on with him, and he died with cirrhosis of the liver at the age of 57. And I said to my mom, I said, I never saw my father drink. He says he didn't drink at home. He went out with his friends, and they would chip in, and they would buy 5 gallons of alcohol, and they would drink, and they would sleep in the street. My father, like many black men, felt that he was a failure, that he came up from the South looking for a better life. He couldn't find it. He had no education. And knowing that my father had died, I wanted to survive. And I said to myself, I'm going to be like these dudes here in the street. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to die on the street. All I wanted to do at that time was to acquire not just a skill, but a marketable skill, something that will help me to become a decent human being and not a bum. In 1948, I entered nurses training. By going to school, I had to avoid my so-called quote-unquote friends. And I saw them a couple of times. They said, John, we don't see you. I said, well, you're not going to see me, man. I did a 180 turn on that. And for 35 years, then I gave anesthesia, during which time I got married, had children. All of my children finished college, not just high school, they finished college. I grew up in a community where everybody dropped out of high school. I decided a long time ago that if I had a family, they're not going to grow up in a public housing project in Harlem. My children own their own house. I want my children to be good people, to the best of their ability. It's not easy, but to the best of their ability. I want them to share. I want them to remember the golden rule and lead a good life.